Hi and welcome to the video. I'm Dame and this is Dame Over, and Battlefield 2042 is finally upon us, everybody, and I have for you one of the most asked for videos whenever a new game releases. This is my settings video. Here is a full settings guide. I'm going to go through absolutely everything and talk you through what I think are the most important things to change to help you get a leg up over the competition. And before we kick things off, here's a very quick reminder that I stream almost every day a week, usually about 6 days a week on YouTube and on Twitch, so if you don't want to miss out on any of the live content, make sure you follow and subscribe as well here on YouTube. All of the links that you need for all of that stuff are going to be down in the description. Right, let's get to it. So first of all, with the general settings, here we go. Like I said, I'm going to go through everything. I might skip over things that are default, but just so you know, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the stuff that I definitely have changed, the things that I think are very, very important. So custom invert all vertical look. We've got this one off, this one on and off. That's all by default. The one important thing in this little block that I changed is the camera shake amount. I don't like camera shake at all with the explosions. If you're in the middle of a gunfight, it will throw your aim off, so I would turn this down to its lowest possible value. It was on 100 by default, and I've turned it down to the lowest value, which is 50. Very confusing that it doesn't go down to 0, but anyway. Next up, we have crossplay, which I need to turn off, actually, which I need to do in a completely different way. So hints for controls, this again is all by default. That's on. Usage data on. Player created content on, so that's, you can see people's emblems and stuff like that and allow followers, that is on. Next up we have displays. This is where the stuff gets really, really good. I've put my field of view all the way up to 100. I might adjust that. Usually I sit between about 90 and 100. So here we go, 100 for me, and I'm just going to try from the top end, see if I can get used to it. If not, I'm going to bring it back step by step. Next one down, we've got the vehicle third person field of view, which I've upped ever so slightly, and this is a personal preference of mine. Some of you guys might not like it, but especially when I'm using an automatic weapon, I like to have ADS field of view on. It stops your view from zooming in and sort of constricting the peripherals so you can see a little bit better around you, but it also reduces the visible recoil. So it makes it far easier to control the weapon when you're fighting, especially if you're aiming down sight. Next up, brightness, I've left that actually as it is by default. I might up it a little bit for those darker maps and those darker areas, but I will change that as I go along. I've not played all of the maps yet, so it's hard to sort of judge where that's going to be. Motion blur, I have turned it off, and all of the ones down here, so I've taken motion blur all the way down to 0. Chromatic aberration, film grain, vignette, and lens distortion, turn all of that off so you don't get any distractions when you're fighting. Anything that's got in sort of visual business going on, get rid of it, because it will make your life a lot easier, trust me. Okay, the HUD in general, show HUD obviously. HUD motion, so I've turned that off because if you're jogging along, your HUD will jump up and down, and it can get very, very distracting, and for those of you that suffer from motion sickness, this might actually cause you to feel a bit ill. Camera shake, which is from a previous screen, is down to 50 as we already know. Soldier compass on. Show vehicle seat on, always very, very useful. Colorblind doesn't apply to me, but you can see what the colors are already as default when you load into the game. So we've got green for squad, blue for team, red for enemy, and gray for neutral. Okay, the kill log, this is something that I have changed. I have it on, and I have show kills made by all. One of the more popular options is to have nearby, which means that you can keep track of things that are going on next to you, but I like to, just in case there is a sniper that gets a long shot off and I don't know they're shooting at someone, to have all, because otherwise it will not appear on the kill feed. Okay, next up we have our crosshair, and some of these I have actually changed. So the opacity and projection. The projection I have actually changed. I've made sure that is off because that won't be moving around the screen at all. It's going to stay exactly where I'm aiming at all times, and I won't have to try and adjust for it moving around if I am quickly getting into a gunfight. So crosshair thickness is by default. The color I've changed this very bright green. There is some sort of science behind it, although I can't guarantee this for sure, but seeing a bright green color stands out a hell of a lot more easily against any sort of background to the human eye than any other color, apparently. But as you can see in the examples on the right hand side there, we've got, especially in the darker areas, it's very, very easy to see. The midtones is great. The brights, it does blend in ever so slightly, but unless you go for a dark color, which will blend in with the shadows in the midtones, I think this is the best way to go. The hit indicator opacity at 100%, that is by default, and damage base shape is by default. The headshot color I've changed to this very deep red, a Dame Over red, so I'm keeping that there. So it's kind of like a little nod to Battlefield 1. I'm so used to seeing the headshot color coming up as red because that's what my settings are in BF1, so I've decided to keep it the same here. Kill color is default, and so is the armor indicator and broken hit indicator. Those are by default as well. Next up, we have our minimap. So the minimap background opacity, that is by default at 90. If you don't want to see anything else behind your minimap, if you find it distracting, whack that all the way up to 100 and it will just be a nice solid map in the lower corner of your screen. Rotate with view, I have turned on. The minimap view distance, I have put way up to 110 because I want to see what I'm running into. Unfortunately for Battlefield 2042, there isn't a way to enlarge the minimap, which is pretty disappointing considering that was in Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. So you're stuck with a very small square down in the corner. Now I'm hoping this will be changed in the future, but it is what it is for now. So you're going to have to try and do your best to find a view distance which works for you. And it seems like at the moment 110 seems to be the sweet spot for me, although that could change in the future. And I've kept the other two with ground vehicles and air vehicles by default, but most of you guys, if you've already watched my content, will know I'm not very much of a vehicle player at all, so I'm probably going to leave all of the vehicle stuff alone. Right, let's go on to sound. So master volume I've kept at default at 100. The music volume I've turned all the way down, and this is for several purposes, mostly to not be distracted in game by music, so I don't miss any gunshots, explosions, anything like that. I can always hear them, and also because I put music over videos that I make and on stream and stuff like that. So the music volume is off, the sound effects at 100, and again with the idea of not being distracted in mind, I have the in-game announcer at 80. So for the sound configuration, depending on what headphones you have, you can choose several different things here. So there's auto, then we've got mono. The setting outputs the native 5.1 surround mix, so that depends if you have speakers with a subwoofer as well. Stereo, which is what I've gone for here because I've got myself some Total Beach Stealth 700s, so they're pretty good at picking up sound, especially in a 3D space. So I've gone for the 3D headphones option for the audio mix, which makes it a little bit easier apparently to hear things behind, below, and above you. The hit indicator, we did have an option during the beta for the Battlefield 1 hit indicator, but they've gone and taken that away. So it's either you can have none at all or the Battlefield 2042 one. And the in-world radio music, I've decided to turn that off again as a content creator just to make sure I don't get any DMCAs and there's not any distracting music around. Subtitles on as standard and normal subtitle text size as standard, again as default. Now we are onto the controller. So the one thing that I've changed here, as you can see, is the soldier buttons. I've gone for the alternate layout, which means the crouch and the melee buttons are swapped around. So to melee or to do a melee takedown, I have to use the B button, and to crouch, slide, go prone, I click in the right stick. This means when you're sliding or going for a drop shot, you don't have to take your thumb off the right stick, so you don't have to compromise your aim, which means if I am popping around a corner, I hit the slide button, I can always stay on target. Everything else, as you can see, is by default on this screen. Next up, we have global. So you might have seen this before, invert vertical look for soldier. There are lots of repeats in these settings, by the way, guys. So if you see something that looks like you've seen it before, you probably have. Next up, we are on foot. So soldier aim sensitivity. I've played around with this a fair bit. I did have it on 50 earlier, and it seemed just a little bit too much for me. So I've decided to go back to 29, although this, again, will change depending on what weapons I like to use, what sort of playstyle I'm going to go for. But 29 seems to be the sweet spot at the moment. In vertical look, we have off, which again you've seen before. FOV, you've seen that before as well. ADS FOV, again you've seen that before. Soldier aim assist, I've turned that down to 85 because I feel like the aim assist is a little bit too strong. If you have targets crossing each other, it kind of pulls your aim away, which is a bit jarring. I want to be able to aim at who I want when I want to aim at them. And there's also the aim assist zoom snap, which I've taken down from 100 to 90. Now with the movement, again, all of this is by default apart from the parachute auto deploy. I've decided to turn that off, so if I jump off a building, I get to choose when I'm going to deploy the parachute. But if I spawn in the air on someone that is parachuting or in some sort of vehicle and someone is jumping out at the same time, then I've decided to have the auto deploy on just to give me that extra couple of seconds to adjust to the surroundings and what's going on. Quick throw grenades didn't seem to work very well in the beta, and I think it's a similar sort of situation now. I've decided to keep that off for now, although that might change. And the revive, interaction, and request/skip revive buttons, I've decided to go, instead of a hold, I've gone with just a tap, just to make life a little bit easier so you don't have to sit there holding a button when you've been absolutely mullered by someone with some sort of LMG from the distance. Okay, everything else I have kept absolutely the same here, and you can see, apart from very importantly, the uniform soldier aiming. I've decided to go with that being on. It means that no matter if I'm ADSing or I'm not ADSing, all of the aiming feels exactly the same. So there is a big slowdown unless you adjust a bunch of other settings. You can basically manually manufacture the uniform soldier aiming if you adjust some of the other settings, but this one does it all for you. So whether I'm aiming down sight or whether I am firing from the hip, it's always going to feel exactly the same no matter what gun I'm using, no matter what range it is from. Everything else, as you can see, again, is by default and is all 100 to keep that continuity all the way through my aiming. Vehicles, again, I've not touched apart from the FOV here. Everything else is as standard, so I'm just going to skip through here very, very quickly. Feel free to pause if you want to. And controller tuning, for the 5th time, I think, here's controller vibration. Everything else for the dead zones, I've turned them down ever so slightly on the sticks because I don't like them. Just in case there's a little bit of drifting on my controller, I've decided to keep a little bit of dead zone on, but 8 is barely anything. Everything else with the controller triggers is, again, as standard by default. Accessibility, I have kept everything, I think, exactly the same. Again, we can see some of the other options that we've seen before, so motion blur, HUD motion, camera shake, all of that I've turned off, and everything else is by default. Subtitles I have kept as standard. I've had them on and the text size is normal. The controls, again, you would have seen all of these before, but basically those are, again, by default. Let's have a look at controller mapping. So this is if you want certain commands to be with certain buttons. I'm not sure if you can do one plus another to make something happen on the screen. So if you wanted to get into the team chat by holding the left trigger and then hitting X, I'm not sure if that's possible. But anyway, if you wanted to map these certain commands to certain buttons on your controller, if you've got some extra paddles or something, if you've got a scuff or an elite controller, this is where you would do that. And it's basically the same for the common ones: on foot, gunner, vehicle driver, transport, and pilot. And the extras, just so you know, is just a QR code to take you to the Battlefield website, the legal, and credits. So the most important things that we've obviously changed are the sensitivity, the field of view, and turned off all of this visual garbage. So that is all of the settings. That is my complete settings guide to get you started on Battlefield 2042. And this, again, by no means is a definitive list. Every person's going to prefer certain things that are different to what I'm showing you today. So what I'm doing is showing you what I use, what works for me so far. So if you want to use my settings as a benchmark, you have this as a guide. So if there are any settings that you think I've missed that you're certain I should be tweaking, especially for those vehicle users, because I know I've skipped over that bit a fair amount, then please do jump in the comments, let me know what you think about that and which ones should be changed. And like I said, Battlefield 2042 is here and we are going to be chucking a bunch of content at you, especially in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you don't miss any of the videos, make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications, hit the like button if you found this video useful, and don't forget I will be streaming, so hopefully I see you live. Until next time, that's Dame over. Peace.